When Palutena was brought into Smash Bros. For the 3DS and Wii U, she was added with a very specific purpose in mind, to showcase the installment's new custom move system, or at least that's what we believe she was meant to do, as evident by all of her custom moves being made available right from the get-go, instead of having to manually unlock all of them. One of the more interesting, albeit controversial mechanics that was introduced in Smash 4 was the ability for players to switch between alternative versions of a character's moves, as a way to add more depth to the game by effectively tripling the number of special moves available to every character. And while that did indeed deliver, the sheer range of customization made it too easy for players to get blindsided by movesets they weren't familiar with, which was a fair point. Because of this, custom moves were banned from competitive play, arguably hurting Palutena the most, who is intrinsically designed around switching between her repertoire of moves as an homage to the equipment and ability customization available in Kid Icarus Uprising. While most other fighters' custom moves entailed changes in attributes, like being stronger but slower, faster but weaker, and whatnot, Palutena's customs featured moves entirely different from one another, allowing for more situational utility based on the type of move you chose. When Ultimate was announced, custom moves were entirely discontinued for everyone spared the Mii fighters, and with Palu's original purpose no longer existing in this game, she was adjusted to compensate. Said adjustments ended up transforming her from a rather underwhelming low mid-tier to arguably one of the best characters in the game, especially in the early meta. And despite a few nerfs that weakened the efficiency of her moves, she is still a stable presence in competitive across all levels of play, but more notably at high and top level. So for today's episode of Why Everyone Plays, we'll be featuring Palutena. Palutena may have been one of the most drastically buffed characters in Ultimate, next to Pichu at least before the nerfs, Roy, and Game & Watch. Very early on in the game's competitive scene, her changes were discovered and acknowledged, owing to Naru's continued success from Smash 4 after dropping Zero Suit for her. The bulk of Palutena's moveset remained the same as far as normal skill, but to account for the loss of custom moves, the developers saw fit to condense her counter and reflect into one singular attack to make room for one of her other specials, Explosive Flame, which used to be her second neutral B. Explosive Flame gave her a way to threaten space from a distance, augmenting her neutral and advantage pressure a bit more since Auto Reticle wasn't sufficient enough in that regard. Overall, this was one of the better quality of life adjustments among the cast, as it addressed her need to fight at close quarters all the time through extending her threat bubble by an ambiguous amount. On top of that, virtually all of her attacks received buffs to turn them from inefficient clunky messes to functional, if not extremely practical tools. To start, her famously awful ground game was made usable at minimum, such as giving faster startup, decreasing end lag, having longer and larger hitboxes, doing more damage, so on and so forth. Decreased end lag was a recurring theme for her kit all throughout. Dash attack was significantly improved in this department. All of her smash attacks had 3 or 4 frames less end lag, with some having more duration, damage, and kill power. Still far from being considered a solid ground game in comparison to someone like Snake or Mithra, but she can actually do stuff on the ground now, whereas in Smash 4 you almost never wanted to use any of her ground moves if you could help it. One of the most sluggish characters in the game in regards to frame data for sure, and she was by no means a heavyweight. Palutena was probably one of the biggest beneficiaries of the universal lag reduction to aerials and the universal frame-free jump squat. In addition to buffs on all of them, the generous auto-cancel windows and minimal landing lag gave her a seamless ground-to-air and air-to-ground transition. One of her more notable flaws is the ridiculous amount of end lag on most of her aerials. For instance, her back air has 39 frames of end lag, forward air has 33, but thanks to how early they auto-cancel now, as well as the low amount of landing lag, you hardly ever notice how laggy they really are. In fact, you'd think I'm lying through my teeth given how often Palu spams her aerials, but that was a huge quality of life change that gave rise to her fluid aerial game. In addition to better frame data, they were all afforded a bit more offensive capability. Forward air, back air, down air, and even up air to a degree went from having almost no kill power, or not enough, to having a fair amount of it, especially her back air, which lost some of its invincibility in favor of no sour spot and more kill power. Overall, back in Smash 4, Palu was a fighter with moves that were good on paper but bad in practice. Ultimate sought out to fix that by making them faster, safer, stronger, and more consistent, while giving reasons to use her otherwise worthless attacks to where they can now comfortably demonstrate their wide range of use cases. Emphasis on wide. Chief among the reasons why she's so popular is without question her versatility. She's a very good, well-rounded character and the textbook example of a good generalist in Smash Ultimate. I know it sounds like I say this in every Why Everyone Plays episode, but if we put all of the good jack-of-all-trades characters on a spectrum, Palutena would definitely be smack dab in the middle, which actually works in her favor. She has the perfect balance of offense, defense, combo setups, stray hits, mobility, recovery, utility, basically everything. And she also doesn't have any egregious weakness or deficiency. A lot of people like to point fingers at her lackluster ground game or the fact that she's tall or her up B being really easy to two-frame due to not having a hitbox, but those weaknesses offset her strengths just as good as Rob's weakness of being too big. In other words, they don't really hurt her that much, certainly not enough to invalidate the strengths in question. To start, she has above average if not stellar physics across the board. Few other characters, if any, possess a mobility spread as fluid as hers. This alone eliminates half the potential problems that would stem from lack of mobility. You can approach, chase down opponents in disadvantage, create space whenever you need to, and your attacks become more ambiguous since you can cross up or drift back while using them. She has no trouble being at the right place at the right time, augmenting the use cases of her various tools. Said various tools are the cornerstone of her consistency. For one, attacks that make use of her buckler are understandably invincible, preventing opponents from challenging her with an attack of their own. Conveniently, that invincibility is attached to parts of her kit that make the best use of it: dash attack and back air. The former can be used as a quick burst option to overpower grounded approaches or even landing aerial ones, while the latter can be used to safely pressure a neutral and advantage without fear of conventional retaliation. The sheer presence of invincibility on these attacks is largely what puts them in contention for one of the best moves of their respective types in the game. That bit of token utility extends to pretty much all parts of a moveset, in that just about all of them have some property that makes them more useful in a specific situation while retaining their general practicality. To name a few, forward and down smash have wind boxes that can be used to gain recoveries. Not applicable for everyone, but it can come in handy in certain cases. Her down special is a counter and reflector, giving her an answer to projectile campers and anyone with very obvious attacks, especially recoveries with attacks. Next to K-Rool's gut check, it's the only unconditional counter in the game that also reflects, whereas others can either only counter, only reflect, or in Joker's case, isn't available at all times. Auto Reticle and Explosive Flame are serviceable long-range tools as well. On top of pressuring opponents at a distance, they can be used to set up checkmate scenarios or follow up after knocking enemies away. Her up special is arguably the best of the teleport up beast thanks to being edge cancelable, making her surprisingly hard to juggle as she can just blink across the stage and get out that way, something Mewtwo and Zelda can't do as liberally due to how floaty they are. Another thing that gives her a bit of an edge is the abundance of long-lasting hitboxes on many of her moves. Multi-hitters are notoriously hit or miss on some fighters, but on Palutena they're quite consistent for the most part. Forward tilt is good for catching spot dodges or even roll-ins, up smash is fantastic at catching anyone with the habit of recovering high or air dodging to ledge, down tilt is generously active for 2-framing, and let's not forget her neutral and up air are two of the best aerials in the game period. Her neutral air was once a clear contender for the first place spot, and even after the nerfs I would still consider it top 5. Up air is complete horse one of the best and easiest up airs for juggling to ever exist. I think you get the point. More significant is that each move, namely her aerials, is designed with a specific purpose in mind that doesn't lead to much overlap. Revisiting said aerials, neutral is a good added shield option, a good air-to-air, a combo starter both on rising and landing, is safe on shield, and the long-lasting hitboxes can make edge guarding and ledge trapping pretty easy for anyone who jumps or even rolls. Forward air is often a fighter's workhorse aerial, used generally for poking, dealing some quick damage, pressuring shield, or to start and or end a combo, all of which her forward air is able to do quite effectively. Back air shares many of the same functions as forward air, but often trades combo potential for more power. As such, it's better for pressuring, which her back air is exceptionally good at by virtue of its invincibility, good coverage, fast startup, and respectable power. Up air is her go-to juggle and anti-air tool, designed to get opponents in the air and keep them in the air while threatening their stock by killing them through the top blast zone. All of which, once again, Palu's up air is extremely good at doing. It can combo, juggle, and kill really well. The aerials that need to be fast are fast, the aerials that need to have a lot of active hitboxes have a lot of hitboxes, the aerials that need to be heavily disjointed are heavily disjointed. And there's one other thing, her downer is one of the few downers in the game that always spikes, no sour spot whatsoever. While it doesn't have a very big hitbox, so long as you land it, it will always spike. Not many characters have all 5 of their aerials be good at doing their respective jobs. There tends to be at least 1 or even 2 that aren't really that good, or sometimes moves might overlap with each other making them redundant. I like to use the Belmonts. Their forward and back air are pretty much exactly the same, with the only exception that back air lasts for 2 frames instead of 1. You might think having long range coverage in front or behind you is good, but a character would be more well rounded if there were distinct functions for each move. Rob's forward air is extremely fast, which makes it good at doing the same things Palutena's forward air is good at, while back air is hard to challenge head on due to how massive it is, and it has a ton of power to kill you off a straight hit, just like how Palu's back air is unchallengeable and has more damage and kill power to make it a stronger straight hit kill option than forward air. Same goes for grounded moves. Wario's forward smash is heavily overshadowed by his forward tilt, which both do more or less the same thing as opposed to say Mario, whose forward tilt is a good block string move, while forward smash is for raw kill power. On the subject of grounded moves, even Palutena's grounded moveset is functionally usable. Her ground game is by no means great. Some may argue it's among the worst combination of tilts in the game, but if that were the case, she wouldn't be anywhere near as popular as she is now. Sure, her forward tilt is not Sephiroth forward tilt, but it lasts a long time, is completely disjointed, and has a good knockback angle. Forward tilts are designed to hit the person in front of you, and this move is good enough to do just that. Down tilt gives her a 2-framing scoop up at the ledge. It would be nice if her down tilt scooped up on stage as well, but having a good 2-frame option in this game is huge. We already went over dash attack and how it's everything you want in a dash attack. Fast, long-lasting, invincible, good power. The only thing it doesn't have is safety on shield, but that would be excessive at that point. Again, her ground game is by no means Mithra or Snake levels of stupid, but Ultimate is far more aerial focused compared to the ground, so if you have to choose between one being better than the other, having better aerials and ground moves is always the right call. One more factor that I believe lends credence to why people enjoy playing her is how she always has options, regardless of matchup. In fact, even the ones that she loses, it never feels like you're totally at a loss thanks to her good stats and arsenal. Against campy zoners, you have a reflector that can diminish the neutral pressure. Against rushdown fighters, you have comparable mobility to keep up with them, and your good ground to air transition makes it so they don't just auto-win by approaching on you. Not to mention, some of her attacks are just as fast as theirs, like dash attack, neutral air, forward, and back air. Against defensive, shield-heavy opponents, she has a very strong grab game that at one point would have easily been top 5. Against anyone with the hit and run whiff punish playstyle, the aforementioned landing and standing lag reduction on all of her moves across the board let her pretty much get away with spamming aerials, especially if she moves around with them. Against swordies, she has just enough mobility and attack range to not get walled out by them, and once again, her dash attack and back air are for all intents and purposes sword moves, if not better. She can speed up the pace of a fight by using her movement and aerials to rack up damage, combo, and juggle, or slow the game down with spaced forward and back airs and neutral and side B. In addition, unlike most other Fundies characters, Palutena has an actual grab game. Her down throw is passable, but that back throw is just not okay to have on someone who conditions you into holding shield really easily. Point being, she has plenty of options. For most other Fundies characters, there's one area they struggle in that if they didn't, would make them obscenely broken. Cloud has amazing normals and good specials, but his abhorrent grab game allows his opponent to get away with shielding in most scenarios. Lucina has a decent grab game and just as good normals and specials, but her melee exclusive nature forces her to always approach her opponent. Greninja's amazing mobility, good projectile, freakish combos, and conversions are offset by the complete absence of out of shield options in his kit. Inkling has good speed, good moves, decent out of shield, and good zone control, but can't kill to save their life. Ike has fantastic range, great power, some of the most brain-dead combo setups on the planet, but he slow as a rock. Palutena doesn't really have a major lack of anything. Sure, it may feel like scoring the killing blow takes a bit more effort than other characters, but she has good mobility, good damage, decent amount of kill power, projectiles to control space and force approaches if needed, a good grab game, good range, good frame data, good utility. She's just good. The epitome of a fighter who's just good. There's nothing particularly special about her that skews her strength in any one direction like Sonic, Kazuya, or Steve. She just has a lot of stuff, and all that stuff is above average or better than other moves of that type. Palutena has everything that players value in a character from a competitive standpoint, so even if at times playing or watching her gets boring or monotonous due to the absence of any, flashy moves or combos, she has so much practical benefit that if it means getting good results, it's worth giving up some of the quote-unquote hype behind playing a character. Now personally, as someone who appreciates good fundamental play, watching a top-level Palutena is a treat. One of the best demonstrations of just how good her attributes are would have to be Chase vs Riddles. That to me is optimal play. She has just enough built into her to where you can make up for any weakness by playing well. Whether fighting Pikachu or Ganondorf, Palutena always has an answer. She always has the ability to better play her opponent, and that's super valuable with how many matchups there are in this game. I don't know how else to say it, she's just good. Not unfairly good in any particular field, just good overall. But what are your thoughts on Palutena? Do you think there's something else about her that makes her popular that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments down below. That's gonna be it for today, so if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you left a like and subscribe. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Vars, join my Discord server, and check out my other Why Everyone Plays videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.